Hello, my name is Jeff. This is Castle Tutelage, your 2A Self-Defense Law Network. I would like to thank everyone who has been on my Facebook page. I think we're up to 24 followers. If this is something that you'd like to see more of, please follow me on Facebook, like me, and do all that other good stuff. I would really appreciate it. There's been a lot of confusion about proportional force. And let me go up here real quick. Don't want you, I want you. Okay. There's been a lot of discussion about proportional force, and Gregory Darth right here, good comments. These are common questions. These are not out of the ordinary, because when I teach stuff in this format, you are not getting the totality of the entire picture. I have to assume things that you've already known from my teaching or from other people teaching you. So there may be some gaps in the information in the totality, and this is part of it. Okay, proportional force. There's going to be ordinary force and there's going to be deadly force. I call it ordinary force instead of non-lethal force because there's always going to be some joker who says, "Yeah, I've seen a 2'1" person take out a 12'9" person in one shot." Okay, that is a different squirrel moment. It doesn't happen all the time. One shot is generally not considered deadly force when you're dealing in the law world. Okay, if it is a duration of force, repetitive punches to the face or whatever, well, then that is something totally different. So that's why I call it ordinary force, to head off those yahoos. Oh yeah, I've seen. Just go on. Okay, when you're dealing with ordinary force, you're going to have different levels of force within ordinary force. A poke in the chest is much different than a back slap to the face. You get the idea. So there is an elevation or an escalation or de-escalation. There is that bandwidth, if you will, when it comes to ordinary force. There is no bandwidth when you're coming to deadly force. A bat, a knife, multiple strikes to the face with a foot, a gun, that is all considered deadly force. When you're dealing with proportional force, you have to really look at the duration of force is when that force stopped. Okay. If you see here over here, he is commenting off of this video, and in that video, I was trying to convey the idea of proportional force when deadly force starts, and more importantly, and this is the lesson for the story, is when it stopped. The basic story was that a person left a busy city street to go into an alleyway. He was attacked by one attacker that was half his size and coming after him with his gun. He pulled his weapon, he fires twice, one hitting him in the shoulder. Okay. After that, the bad guy dropped the gun. The gun went under the dumpster where he had no ability to get it, and he stumbled forward. And then he shot a third time. Okay, when was this a good shoot, and exactly when was the moment where that third shot was not a good shoot? Okay, people get misconstrued about what their training is compared to what I am teaching here, teaching as far as proportional force. The number of shots are irrelevant. It's just a data point in time where I can convey where it is a good shoot and where it becomes not becomes a bad shoot. In that, there's a lot of other comments. Well, stumble forward to other people means aggressively attacking them, and that third shot was no. That's not what it was. I said he stumbled forward. I didn't say he stumbled forward in an aggressive manner to beat your face in. He stumbled forward. At that point, when the gun is physically underneath the dumpster, and I don't understand people who would like to argue about it all the time about a specific situation where I'm trying to teach this thing. Well, who knows if he saw the gun fly under the dumpster? Well, then my narrative would say he didn't see where the gun went. Okay, the reason why the narrative was that he dropped the gun and it went under a dumpster is because the immediate threat of death or great bodily harm is no longer there. It's interesting how people just want to argue with you. They're not interested in learning, but they're just interested in arguing with you. So let's go along with this with Gregory's good comments. Okay. Interesting video. I agree that the constant and continuous evaluation of the situation is absolutely essential. It makes you look like a rational and reasonable when you have defended yourself in later actions. See, that is the perfect sense of what I'm trying to get across to you. I am teaching you your narrative. I am teaching you how to defend yourself and what looks best in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the DA, so you can get out of that court cog, that pipeline, that big thorough machine that chews people into dust. You know that wood chipper scene in Fargo? That is what the legal system does to good people with good intentions, and they do not have a good narrative. Okay. As we go on, most of the training I do involves firing 2 or 3 rounds in rapid succession at the perceived threat. So were I in that situation, I would likely throw 3 shots at the guy before his firearm even hits the ground. See, that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Whatever your training is, whether it's a double tap, triple tap, 2 to the thorax, 1 to the head, which I'm not a very big fan with, and it really depends on how you're training and how your narrative is. If it's your narrative just to automatically do 2 to the thorax, 1 to the head, well, you're going to have explaining that 1 shot to the head. It has to be like the 2 to the chest wasn't effective, or there was some armor, or it was covered in some fashion. You're going to have to explain that 3rd shot to the head. I don't care what it was. See, when I was in the Coast Guard, we did triple taps. And you always tend to revert to your younger training model. Okay, I'll be 50 here shortly, and I tend to retrain to my younger training model. So when I'm doing my Coast Guard training and I go to another training facility somewhere else, and they want me to do it completely different, well, that old dog learning new tricks, I will revert back to my younger training model. It happens to me all the time. But when you're dealing with that, I'm trying to give you guys the idea. Don't confuse your training scenario on where you've been compared to how many shots is really proportional force. Okay. I guess that changes the scenario, but excessive force juries tend to find a couple or 3 shots reasonable in the threatening situation. Well, that's the idea. I mean, that's why I'm not a big fan of anything under a 9mm short, because if you're using a 32 or a 25, you may have to shoot the person more, and then you're going to have to justify the shooting of more. And here is the perfect scenario. This was a Costco shooting a few years ago, where somebody who was giving out sample food of pizza, she was a little upset. She was handing out pizza, and that product wasn't in the store, but she was doing it anyway. And then she started threatening her coworkers with knives. The police came, they tried to tase her, that failed, and then a little Asian lady started rushing them, and they shot, and this is what the questions come out to be.
Investigators believe the second deputy was hit by a bullet that ricocheted. Tonight, he is out of the hospital. There are still some important questions that need to be answered. Number 1, why didn't the taser work? Number 2, why did the deputy fire multiple shots in a crowded store to take down 1 person? Live in Sterling, I'm SHOMARI Stone, News 4.
And these are the guys that really don't understand of how defensive situations shot. So the media is already asking these questions, and they're going to be asking the prosecutor the same question. Well, then the prosecutor is going to have to start asking the same questions. Even though that these were police officers that are shooting, let's just insert your gun in at Costco with a knife-wielding person. They're going to be asking the same question. Why was there multiple shots fired in a crowded place? Well, sir, because this little Asian lady was coming after me with a gun. I mean, a knife, Hello, that's a deadly threat. I don't care. My life was, I was in fear for my life, a great bodily harm at that point. I don't care if it was Donald Duck with a knife giving out pizza samples. I would have done the exact same thing. So that's why I'm really saying that you shoot until the threat is stopped. But if you shoot 40 shots, you're going to have to explain that that 40 shot. There's something called a duration of force. Now, let's just say, let's go back to that robbery situation in the alleyway. Say you put two to the thorax. He went down straight, face forward. You come over him, kick him a couple of times. He doesn't move, and you did the good guy Hollywood scene of a bad guy. Is you put one more in the back of the head. Well, there's a duration there. There's a time lag between those two shots and the third. You got to recognize when you're dealing with proportional force, you got to recognize when proportional force of deadly force ends. There is an evolution of escalation, and then you need to recognize where it ends. The next portion of it regarding proportionality. If the assailant doesn't get a round off because you managed to get one off first, isn't a proportionality already broken? No, it's not. And proportional force, you don't have to wait till the gun is fired. The law says imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. All right. Remember that that card that I am offering, and I'll show it in a different video. I just got them in the mail a few days. I'll be offering these cards to you. It has my logo on one side, and then this saying: a person who is without fault may use force, including deadly force, to defend against what they reasonably fear is an imminent, unlawful threat of death or great bodily harm, provided there is no reasonable alternative to avoid that. I'm going to be offering these cards online eventually at like $2 for one, and that includes shipping and stuff. This is going to be a great thing to have in your wallet for you to review once a month, and for you to refresh what is required: innocence, eminence, proportionality, avoidance, and reasonableness, if you ever do have a use of force event. Okay, so when you're dealing with, oh, you can't use force because you got the thing off first, well, you can actually use deadly force if all 5 standards are met: innocence, eminence, proportionality, avoidance, and reasonableness, and the AOJ triad: avoidance, opportunity, ability, and jeopardy. If all those requirements are good, and the person does a furtive hand movement, you can actually get away with a self-defense claim with no weapon seen. Okay, but again, your narrative is going to have to be pretty perfect in expressing exactly what your reasonable fear is at the time. This is another point. Again, this is a beautiful comment because these are all the common questions about proportionality all wrapped in one. So I really appreciate Gregory for doing this, and you know, just being totally honest in where he's at. So you are already using more force. Okay, at that point, where was it? Where was it? Here we go. For all you know, the gun is a replica, a squirt gun, sprayed painted black, or he doesn't even have bullets. Well, this is a perfect thing. If you think that that is a real gun, even it turns out later to be a pellet gun or whatever, you can use deadly force. Okay, if it was a reasonable fear of death or great bodily harm, you can use deadly force. I also want to say, and it doesn't happen this often, that bad guys will paint their guns colorful colors. They'll paint it also orange. Okay, and I'm going to be very careful here. I am not saying that you should shoot somebody because it is orange. The nose of the gun is orange, but all I want you to be aware of, and it doesn't happen very often, is that bad guys adapt. They try to take advantage of what they can, and if spray painting the front of their gun orange or colorful colors like greens, you know, of the squirt guns, and oranges, just to get that extra hesitation so they can get that advantage, they will do that. But I'm not saying to automatically shoot, especially a kid, with an orange gun. Okay, you're going to have to take it in its totality. So encapsulating proportionality, you have ordinary force, you have deadly force, you have the shades of gray of ordinary force, you have the one shade of of deadly force. It's one bucket. There is no proportional force. When you're dealing with proportional force within the deadly force, you must recognize where deadly force stops, where you pull out that gun and you take care of business, and when it ends. When the de-escalation of force ends, or when the person that you shot no longer has the ability, opportunity, or jeopardy to take out his threats against you, that is what you need to really understand about proportional force. The duration of force between the first shooting and the second shooting, that is also extraordinarily important. So again, I want to thank Gregory for this comment. And again, if you do have any comments or questions, please leave them in the video, or go to my Facebook page of 2A Self-Defense Law. My name is Jeff. This is Castle Tutelage, your 2A Self-Defense Law Network.